Okay, I'm ready, man. I'm super ready. I'm gonna have a sip of my coffee. Make sure we wrap Galaxy. I got banana bread all over this mug. Doesn't look pro. Does not look pro. All right, let's get into it. So, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Photography Brothers podcast. We are your photography brothers. I'm Jared Poirier. I'm a videographer and a photographer here in Toronto, and I'm with a very handsome man who is named
Michael Costa. I am a lifestyle photographer and video editor here based out of Milton, Ontario, I guess now. But yeah.
Nice.
I'll
He's
still
moving around.
go with the I still like to go with the Mississauga native thing, but we'll go Milton. We'll give Milton some cred right now.
Photographer at large, photographer around the world, Mr. Worldwide as they call you.
Yes, because when I move from city to next door city, I'm Mr. Worldwide.
Oh man, photographer. Photographer who's gonna be mad at me once I Photoshop a picture of him bald, looking like Pitbull, and put it up.
Oh man,
I'll
tell you what.
here.
I'll tell you what. If you wait about 3 years to post this video, I will send you an actual photo of me bald, and you won't need to Photoshop anything. So.
Yeah, man. I've been doing this 30 for 30 challenge on Instagram where you do like push-ups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I keep like putting up my my cell phone camera and then just like doing push-ups, but the angle is usually the top of my head. And
oh man, it's the most brutal perspective. I know what you mean. Jamie. Jamie challenged me to do that one time, like early last year, or earlier this year, and man, that angle is just like the worst. Basically, when I was doing it, I was like, I'm only looking at the camera, but then it looks weird because you're like dead-eyeing the people watching it. You're like,
while you're heavy breathing.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, by 20 I'm already heavy breathing for sure.
Hell yeah, dude.
Let's kick off a topic, my dude.
Okay, well, before we get into the episode here, I just want to acknowledge a couple things. We got a couple of birthday shout outs here. So today is my brother Craig's birthday. I want to say happy birthday to Craig. Yesterday was my drummer Mark's birthday, so we're gonna do a happy birthday shout out to Mark. And coming up, I'm not sure when I'm going to actually edit this or get it out, or maybe I'll make Michael edit this one. I don't know. Maybe he'll make it my Christmas present and edit this one for us. I'm not sure. But my lovely fiance Masha is having a birthday coming up in next weekend. So that's pretty exciting as well. So happy birthday to Masha.
Happy birthday to Masha. Happy birthday to the drummer. Happy birthday to everybody.
Happy birthday to everybody in the world. Anybody else in particular that you want to wish a happy birthday to, Michael Costa?
Oh man.
Jesus, that one's coming up.
Jesus Christ is coming up. Big fan.
Whoever, I don't know who Hanukkah is, but happy birthday Hanukkah, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's something to do with that Buddha guy, or like, I don't know.
Happy birthday Buddha.
Yeah, happy birthday Buddha, and to ignorance.
I was gonna say this might be the most offensive part of Photography Brothers so far.
I needed to make an ignorance comment there so that they knew that we're joking.
Okay, so birthdays are out of the way. General cultural ignorance is out of the way. Disclaimers are out of the way. Let's get into our topics for today. I've got a great topic, and everybody loves this topic already. They're going to be blown away by this topic. Okay. Do you want to go first, actually, with topics, or can I go? I'm pretty excited.
I'd say you go first, and then I think mine is a good news/topic transition into news, and so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is a topic here, and this is something that I have heard many times in my life. The phrase that every photographer, every creative has heard, and maybe you hate to hear it, or maybe you embrace it, but we've all heard it. You're too expensive. It hurts, don't it? How does that phrase make you feel, Michael? Has anyone ever said, Michael Costa, photographer, you are too expensive?
I have, But funny enough, I think there's two things to say here. So one is I have when I really wasn't. Like it was like I think you hear it a lot, especially when it's someone who's diving into like getting outsourcing, freelance work and stuff, and they haven't really had to do that for creative. Maybe they've just kind of done some stuff themselves, and now they're doing it, and they weren't expecting the price point. And so I think like for a lot of those people, I was surprised where it was like, I typically, and not that this is a recommended thing, but it's a very competitive market in Toronto, and for a lot of these things, sometimes if I know that there's future opportunity with that client, I'll undercharge a little bit. And so funny enough, it's been on a lot of opportunities like that. And yeah, like the running trend typically was that like it's either a new company or they're new to outsourcing creative. But outside of that, I think like if it's somebody who's established and they're trying to almost bully you into a lower price point, or just saying, hey, if that's too much, you don't really want to work with them. They're probably not going to value creative. That's kind of my take on it, right? Like if I I'm talking to someone who's like a mid-size energy drink manufacturer, and I quote them something reasonable and they say no, then the next time they ask me, I might not even try. Maybe, right? But I think that like it says a lot about how much they value creative, and you don't want to work with people, at least from my opinion, that don't value creative, and at the end of the day probably won't value yours.
Yeah, it could be a sign of trouble, definitely, that you're going to experience a bit of a hard relationship as this fly comes into the room here. Trying to ruin the podcast right now. Yeah, like I think sometimes it is that. Sometimes it is a sign that tells you like, oh, this is maybe a client that I need to be a little bit weary of. And sometimes it's just that you, along the way in your sales process and your onboarding process, you just haven't really explained the value of what you do well enough, maybe that when you do get to that point that you're throwing out the price, that the client is coming back. So yeah, I think it can be one of two things. Yeah, maybe you are right. Maybe it is just someone who doesn't really value creative work, doesn't really understand like the return on investment they're going to get with that. But sometimes it does have to do with just like how you're explaining what it is that you do and how the client is going to benefit from your services, right?
It's true. I think actually, thank you for bringing up those points. Those are really good ones. And I think another point to bring up is like, if you're Jimmy Two Shoes and you just picked up your, mid 2000s Nikon DSLR, and you looked up how much to charge on your gigs, and you saw that like Johnny, I'm running out of names here. Johnny Cheap Cam. No. Oh. Johnny Cheap Cam would have to be the first guy. Okay, let's do this all over again. Johnny Cheap Cam. Okay,
yes.
Johnny Cheap Cam, mid 2000s Nikon DSLR. They had incredible video, guys. Incredible videos on that. Let's say he's like, I want to start charging because I shot my niece's confirmation last week and it looked really good. And so then he looks up and he sees that Jimmy Two Shoes, who's been in the industry for 20 years and has an incredible setup of equipment and production quality and experience, is charging $1,000 per gig. Don't match his cost, maybe. Like, don't, you have to be aware of your experience as well. And I think that becomes a big factor into how you price out your rates, right?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into pricing. Like me personally, I'll usually do it by like an hourly type of thing. If it's like a way more stressful scenario, like I started doing live streams, which require like ridiculous amount of like attention and like on, troubleshooting on the go and things like that. I'll charge a little bit more of an hourly for that. If there's a lot of extra gear that I have to bring, these are things that you need to consider. You got to be making sure that you're getting paid enough as a creative that it's actually worth it, right? You don't want to ever be in that situation that you're bringing a lot of stuff. and not really, bringing a lot to the table in terms of skills and gear and everything, and just not getting paid enough that it's worth it for you, you should feel good while you're doing this. So you got to account for all of that in your pricing. But yeah, what are some things in your experience, Michael? And I have a few points here myself. What are some things if people do, if you are quoting, let's say, a new client and they do say something like, hey, like this is a little bit expensive for us. What are some ways that you're like able to justify that price, or really like, continue that conversation if you do actually want to work with that client?
It's a very good question.
Thanks, bud.
I think I'd hope that, it's an industry that I'm familiar with. I don't, we have to assume that in that, like, if they're reaching out or if I'm reaching out, it's going to be something where they've either seen that my body of work reflects that I'm comfortable in that space, or that I felt comfortable in it, and so I reached out. And then in that situation, like, just experience is one thing that I'd probably want to highlight. Like, hey, I've shot many apparel shoots, and it's been used in multiple campaigns or collateral, just as an example, right? I think that's one thing you can address. The other thing, a lot of people play the equipment field. Mm-hmm. I think you can. I think that you see a lot of those like YouTube series where it's like pro versus amateur, and the amateur's got like a red and the other guy's got like something crap, but the video output is always still very impressive from the pro. So I think that like equipment is something that you can factor in. Mm-hmm. I think that there is a place for it, in that there is an over time I guess depreciation, but also mm-hmm. like I guess like it wear and tear as well. So I think you can, to a degree. I think just like some people are a little misunderstood on the equipment side on like what it means. It's more so that's the latter. It's less to do with like, hey, I have a good camera so I can put out good equipment. Now, with that being said, depending on what you're shooting, you can play that, right? If you're like, hey, you know what? Well, I was thinking about doing some super slow-mo. I've got I don't know, pick a camera. It can shoot at 120 frames per second. You won't be able to do this at this video quality output without this kind of equipment. If it brings some sort of unique value that way, then that's different, mm-hmm. right? But if it's like, hey, I have an A7 II and it's really good, then that's not how you want to do it. So I think equipment, I think sometimes from the client side, they don't understand.
You got to explain it. So you have to explain it. Say something in terms of like they will understand. If you just say like, oh, well, I'm bringing this camera and it's 120/60, they're going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So like slow that down. Say, okay, you'll be able to shoot really high quality, and you'll be able to get like even slow motion shots and all of these types of things, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. I think the last point I was just going to bring up was just I think in a lot of the value that we bring.
I think I meant to say 4K 60, by the way. Sorry. Yeah, if you could shoot in 4K 60 frames. Yeah, if you just said 4K 60, they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the last thing that, in a way, is kind of encapsulating the first 2 points is just that our vision is kind of... I guess a culmination of what the tools that we have available to us and our experience, mm-hmm. and knowing what we can do. And then also like just in the nature of being a creative, like we go into this with like being able to see things that sometimes other people can't. Mm-hmm. And so if something is expensive to them, but maybe they don't fully understand the scope of what you're talking about, hopping on a call and just being like, this is exactly what I'm envisioning. Yeah. Tell me that this doesn't sound awesome.
Yeah, this is why you want me to have a better lens. This is why I need a zoom lens for this job. This is why I need to bring extra lights. This is why we need a gimbal, depending on the job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. There's a few things too that I like to pull out, and I've found that these can work really well. Just going back to that point of like return on investment, I think that this can be one of the strongest things. If you just say like, wow, I have really fancy gear, that's not always like the greatest. It can work, it can work, and it can be a justification. But I think a better one is like that return on investment, saying like, and it works really well for me, especially in real estate, saying, you're going to spend X hundreds of dollars or X thousands of dollars, but you're going to be selling properties like sooner. You're going to get a lot more reach with your properties. And when you are selling like an active listing, you know, you're talking about making like 20-30 grand. So the few $100s or a few thousand that you're paying for videos over time, like it's paying for itself and then some, right? So if you're able to come up with a really good, like, especially if you have a case study where you can say, hey, I actually, you know, maybe you find this price is a little expensive, but I just did this similar project for another client, and they made like X amount of money. Now you understand the value, right?
Yep. Last point I want to add in here, just because when you were talking, you
go
really
and then I'll go.
something.
We just swift back and
Just
forth.
keep going.
Quick fire.
I think that the other part of this is, look, when you're doing B2B, right? Like we're talking about, you know, I think in general we're talking in this show, we talk about everything, but in this specific situation, we're talking about like, you know, at least from my perspective, because that's kind of the world I live in, is that B2B, like reaching out to a company, trying to do
mostly what I'm
some
talking
marketing
about,
stuff. Right? Right. And so when you're talking about that, your main goal, I think, from that first gig is to create reoccurring revenue and reoccurring gigs. And so by highlighting just the equipment that you have, also, it's like, that doesn't make you a unique asset, right? That's not someone that they're going to want to bring you back for. But like, if you have great vision, you have experience, and you're a likable person or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like that, I think that's going to yield better results.
Dude, this is so crazy. Like the level that the photography brothers are at. I was about to say the exact same thing.
We'll call that both our points.
Literally the same thing. I was seriously about to say the same thing. Like what
same sweater, same ideas.
Same sweater, same glasses. Different cameras, Canon forever, Canon for life, at least until Boxing Day when I buy a Sony. Just kidding. But that can be something that really sets you apart, especially if someone maybe doesn't understand the gear. Maybe they don't understand that, like, you're just you know, the skills that you have with light and the artistic vision that you have is above and beyond other people. I mean, I guess that can be relative as well, right? But something like, you're looking at the long term, you're looking to be a team member to this person, right? You're going to be showing up reliably. Like, there's some of my clients that like call me and say, Jared, we're shooting next week. That's okay? Yeah, I'll be there. We need to postpone it. It's okay. I'll be there, right? You're there for them when they need you. And that is something that, you know, is really invaluable, truly. Like, that is going to keep the customers coming back. I think that's definitely one of the best ways to justify your price, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. You got anything else? I think we pretty much nailed it right there.
I think that was great. I know I had something that came up,
and it's lost in the ether.
It's lost. It's lost in the ether, man.
Oh, man.
What do they call the is it the under in Stranger Things?
Oh,
under,
wow. I watched it, and I guess it just kind of went in and out of my brain.
That's kind of what I'm hoping happens to 2020.
Hang on, I'll look it up. What's the thing in Stranger Things? I'm probably not typing the right word. Thing in Stranger Things. The underworld. What's it called? All right, let's see. It's called the Upside Down. The Upside Down. Ladies and gentlemen, live here on the Photography Brothers podcast, googling Upside Down.
Did you have any other points that you wanted to get across?
Oh, I think we nailed it. I totally think we nailed it. That's really the big thing is like, what's the gear that you're bringing to the table? What's the skills that you're bringing to the table? What's the ROI? And what's like your value as a team member to that person or that business? Like, I don't know. I don't know if there is anything else. I don't know if a topic's ever been summed up as well as we just did this.
Well, let's see if I mess it all up, because I had one more point.
Okay.
This may have been mentioned already, I think, possibly in episode 1, but I think the thing for a lot of you to understand, if you're new to this and even just new to B2B, in a creative space, is, businesses don't want to keep looking for a new creative. They want to just have the guy or the girl or the person who doesn't associate with a gender. They want to have their person. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, if you strike the right chords, you're the person. And so, I think all of this to just sum up that, like,
very true.
Yeah. That first impression is like incredibly important.
Hell yeah. There are massive opportunity costs for trying to get like a new person to do something. And I'm someone that like hires freelance for my business. And when I find people who are reliable and they do good work and they're willing to learn, like there's just no turning back. Like there's no way I would try to find somebody else, right? Even if they were cheaper. Seriously, even if they were cheaper, I'd be like, nope, because it's going to take so much time to get them used to how I want the work to be done and things like that. So very true, man. Very true. Very good point.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Cool. So, great topic, Jared. As Thanks. Always, of course, man. You know, we know what we're getting here. We know what we're getting from Jared. So my topic is going to seamlessly transition into the news element of the show because it is tied. Thank you. It is tied to a news story, but there was a topic that came to mind when I was reading through it. And so you can find this. It is on Petapixel. We'll have all the links obviously linked down below. But the title of the article is "Photographer Gets Death Threats Over Utah Monolith Photo in New York Times."
Okay.
Photo,
yeah.
Man.
I heard about this monolith. I didn't hear about this particular story related to it. So
same. I don't know that a lot of people know. Although I guess the image was released on New York Times, right? So, you know, I'm not that big into looking at publications and stuff like that, but the photo is incredible. And basically, it's all about this guy called Ross Bernards, and he's like this, you know, those photographers drive around in a van. They kind of just like live the road life, really cool. And so one night he drove by the monolith. With intention, he drove to it. And he wanted to try out kind of like some light trails. And so he had his camera set up on a tripod. And then he had, you know how you do light trails. You set up the whole thing, long exposures, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he had his drone, which has a light on it, lower down as he stood on top of the monolith. And it lowered down into his hand. So it created this really cool, almost like, I don't know if anyone watches Dragon Ball Z or watched it, you know, Kamehameha, you know, that kind of thing.
Very cool, man. Yeah.
Really cool image. So he gets back into his van. Turns out the people that took it the same night that he was there. So he's getting a couple of different points.
Oh, because someone like stole it or whatever, right? It like disappeared.
Exactly. So he's getting two different types of backlash around this. So one, I'll start with the part that's not tied back to my topic, and then I'll transition into that. So the one thing is like, hey, you saw them there. He was apparently close enough. He could hear what they were saying. He told Petapixel, you know, some of the things that they were saying.
The people that stole it, you mean?
Exactly, yeah. So you were close enough. You didn't do anything. You didn't say anything, whatever. Sure. I think that it's fair. I know it was three guys, I think, that took it. I was looking. Apparently, they've posted footage of it, too. Crazy. But so, you know, I think it's understandable if he didn't do anything because it's, you know, one guy versus three guys. What if they're, you know, confrontational? But the other part of it, and this is going to transition into the topic, is he's getting a lot of backlash around it because of the fact that he was standing on it and he was creating these photos around it.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking, yeah.
Exactly, right? And so there's a whole topic there, and I know, you know, we're local here, and so obviously know about Caledon. You probably know that there was the Badlands over there, and it's still there, but unfortunately we don't have access to it anymore. We can go to a visual to a platform where we can look at it, but before and unfortunately I did this as well, a lot of photographers, videographers, we'd go there, we'd literally be standing on it, walking up and down, climbing it, taking photos, and what happened was that they were concerned about, I don't want to say the health of it, but basically like the conditions of it and how it was kind of deteriorating over time, and so they closed it off. And so I think my question really ties back to like, where is that line between utilizing the space and creating something really beautiful and highlighting it versus like, hey, let's respect that space. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of that line for me. And I think that that's also transferable to like, even if you're shooting at a venue and it's like, hey, I'm gonna like use this as a foreground piece and like take photos, and in general, like we have to know what that line is.
Yeah, like how much are you kind of paying tribute to a work of art by like incorporating it into your own art, or are you just like kind of vandalizing it and like reducing the enjoyment? Like you probably want to take this photo to like enhance people's enjoyment of it and like put your own spin on it, and maybe you are like ruining their enjoyment of it if you're, what if he did break it or something like that, right? Yeah.
I think you brought up a good point. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead. Yep.
I think a large portion of it, like you just said, and I hope I'm not about to take your point, but I think again, but I think
get out of my head, Michael Costa.
I don't know. I was trying to do like a mind reading power.
Today's news: new photographers are reading minds.
We're teaming up with the camera stealing monkeys.
Yeah,
we're taking over the world.
Reading minds, stealing cameras,
eating bananas. Bananas. My thought is, and potentially our thought is, that as long as you're not vandalizing it, it might not be an issue. But I think like, for example, like if we talk about like a Grand Canyon or something like that, it's like, oh, this would be a great spot. Don't be like hammering anything into rocks. Don't be like, climbing things. Obviously if it has a sign that says don't climb anything, don't touch, whatever, that's obvious. But like in general, like there needs to be, I think, like an awareness of like, hey, there might not be a sign here, but this looks fragile. This looks brittle. Maybe I don't tamper with this, touch this, go near it. I can capture it and highlight its beauty, but not manipulate it.
Yeah. It's really reminding me a lot of the discussion that we had around street photography, and I think we really came down kind of in both of us, I really think, came down on like the moderate side of that issue, really kind of understanding both sides, but also, not being too extreme, like not being that extreme artist or that extreme, I don't know, like anti-artist that's like, these artists are out here just doing whatever they want and that's so bad. Like, I think if you're excited about something and you really want to go create a piece of art, like I don't want to say don't go out there and do it, right? Like if you want to, go be part of this big art experience with this monolith, I think like go and do that. If you want to do street photography, go and do that. Just have respect for the people around you is really what it takes, I think. Yeah. So what's your take on this whole thing?
Man, I kind of just gave it, but I think it ultimately is like having respect for the place. I think, so that's on the nature side and like, natural beauty. We don't want to manipulate it, touch it, or adjust anything about it. Sorry, I meant more like what do you think this thing is? Do you think it's just a piece of art, or you think it's actually like something aliens put in there? Yeah, that's what I meant. You mean the monolith?
Yeah.
I have no idea what that's it looks like. I saw a video. Apparently there's a TikTok of the 3 people who stole it walking away with it.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was surprised because every photo that we've seen of it, it just looks like this really dense piece of metal that's just hammered into the ground. It's like sheet metal or something. And then there's like a top, and then it's hollow on the inside. And I was like, So to answer your question, if it was alien, I think it'd be dense. It'd have some like crazy like. And have you ever seen Transformers 2?
Those movies all blur together. Sure.
There's like so in one of the Transformers movies,
Shia LaBeouf's in that one, right? Yeah.
Shia LaBeouf.
One
he's
of the
great
Shia
in it,
LaBeouf
man.
era.
Wahlberg's got to get out of here. Okay.
Well, Wahlberg. Get out of here.
Come on, get out of here. Get back to the burgers.
Go back to Boston.
The
Go
glasses.
eat some burgers.
His glasses in one of the movies. Mine are incredibly dirty, but in his. It was, or sorry, not his glasses. His grandfather's glasses had these like kind of like carved in alien words and signs and stuff like that.
It's all coming back to me.
I mean, that's what I think if it was alien, it'd look really cool like that. How we got here, I don't know. But we're just talking about if aliens were to put a piece of metal on the ground, what would it look like? I think it looks kind of like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was cool. It broke up the monotony of the news cycle. It wasn't some story that made everybody made everybody upset and made everybody cry and, just brought everybody to desperation. This was something fun and something fun to talk about. So I'm glad we're talking about it here on Photography Brothers.
Yeah, man. I mean, some people got pretty triggered by it, but some people got pretty triggered about it. But no, I definitely do agree that like the fact that it was something that wasn't tied back to like a pandemic or a virus is just like, even the vaccinations, like, oh, it's 95% accurate. It's like, yeah, you're still reminding me that there's just tell me when the thing's out.
Yeah, that really speaks to the internet's capacity to ruin everything, doesn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, are we ready to go into the news?
Let's do it. What do you got?
All right, we're coming in. Well, don't forget, we got to rock the intro. Get the fuck out of here. This fly's been in my house for like 4 days. How long?
This episode is brought to you by the fly in Jared's room.
How long do flies live?
A day. I've looked this up.
A day?
Yeah. No, sorry. A month is what I meant to say.
Oh, a month.
Up to a month. That's the common house fly. Everyone is in and around a month, somewhere or less than that.
I'm looking at a month of this.
Well, it depends, man. How big is this guy? Like, is he, fully? Is he an adult? He's gonna pass out.
He's pretty chunky, man. He probably is coming in here because I got this banana bread. I'm gonna move this banana bread.
What's your topic, my dude?
We got the topics are over, bro.
Sorry, man. Your news article.
You in the past.
News article.
This is Photography Brothers News, ladies and gentlemen, and I am exhilarated right now. I am exhilarated because this is your source for the latest and greatest news, and this episode has some serious news on the cutting edge. We are on the leading edge, the bleeding edge, the cutting edge, all of the edges with this.
All of them. It's actually an octagon, and so there are many edges. And
other ones that I didn't even think about.
What's the 3D octagon? What is that one?
I don't know, bro. That's a math geometry question more than a Photography Brothers question.
Well,
I didn't expect
we're on all those.
Freaking geometry quiz on Photography Brothers. This isn't Geometry Brothers.
Okay, tell us on the 3D octagon thing.
Yeah.
Which edge are we paying attention to? What's the news story?
Right now,
what do we got here?
Right now we're going to talk about the bleeding edge.
The bleeding edge. Okay.
Of the octagon. Okay, time for a news story. So this news story also comes from Petapixel. I guess we've just been sourcing some news stories from there. Apparently, they're putting some good stuff up on there, so you can check out that website. They got good stuff related to photography. And this article right here is entitled "AI Will Not Ruin Photography." So this is basically going into some of the new AI related advancements in the fields of photo editing. And there's been quite a lot going on, actually. So just to keep you guys up to speed, let's start with Dxo Photo Lab. Photo Lab 4, it's a piece of software that I personally don't use. Michael, you ever use this software? Nope, me neither. But these guys are doing some cool stuff with AI photo editing. So they have some new features that they're implementing right now. One of them is going to be AI-powered denoising, and then this other thing that I had to look up called demosaicing with AI. And this is all specifically around the editing with AI in the RAW format. So definitely something that photographers are familiar with and can benefit from. You can think of a lot of reasons why you would want to denoise your photos if you're shooting a little bit in the dark. Maybe you don't have the most expensive camera in the world, so you're cranking your ISOs, you're getting a little bit of noisy photos. I've definitely had that experience before, shooting like late at night in bars and things like that and trying to get good light and like trying to put your flash in the right place and everything. And when you're going through and editing, yeah, having the ability to denoise would be awesome, especially if it's simplified. And demosaic, what that is it's actually able to go into the color data and kind of extrapolate out all of the colors. So if you're shooting in RAW and you have like a photo that doesn't have as rich a colors as you want, I guess when you go to like boost the saturation, this kind of new feature is able to find out like all of the colors and then kind of bring them back to life, I guess is what I could understand. Demosaicing, my 5 minutes of reading what I could piece together on that. So this is kind of interesting. And then with Photoshop is where the really crazy stuff is happening. So there's a whole bunch of new features for Photoshop that are like AI powered. We'll talk about a few of them here. Sky replacement, skin smoothing. You can do like aging, age people up, what like you kind of do on your cell phone. Some other ones like colorizing black and white photos. And then another one that was, colorizing black and white photos. One that was really, really interesting is like really precise hair masking, like being able to kind of get in and get like all those individual strands of hair, which is kind of like the hardest part of when you're trying to like mask out a person out of the background or whatever. Yeah. And then the creepiest one is like changing facial expressions. Oh. That one creeps me out a bit, I gotta say.
That would be great for someone who you've never seen smile before.
Yeah, you could like actually see what it would look like if they did smile. And I was thinking like applications of that one would be like definitely those wedding photos or those family photos where one person just ruins it by like making a weird face, and then you're just like, boom, guess what? Fix that. This is all pretty interesting stuff. And I guess the reason why this is like AI powered, like strictly speaking, from what I understand about like AI is that you like teach the machine in order to get it to do a task. So like when they have like songs that are written by AI, it's like you play every Beatles song for like for a system, and then it like writes a Beatles song for you based on that. You can kind of see that, right? So this type of thing is like they've been showing photos, like Dxo says that for the past 15 years they've been feeding their algorithm photos. And I guess that's teaching it like, okay, what is the process of like denoising? What is the process of like changing the levels that like you would go through for pretty much every single photo? And I mean, I can see the benefits of this for sure. If it's lightening your workload, I don't like post-processing is kind of boring. It's not as fun as shooting, right? And if this means that you can shoot more and post-process less, then maybe it is a good thing. But what are you thinking about all this?
Yeah, I think look, I think that whenever someone mentions AI in like it being able to do something that we would typically do ourselves, typically people get uncomfortable about it. But I think in this scenario, like you mentioned, it can only be beneficial. Obviously there are people who run photo editing at least sides to their business. Sometimes maybe some people do it as a full-time thing. Maybe that impacts them. But I think for the larger scale of things, this is really beneficial. Now, is it accurate? Right? You're talking about how there's 15 years of backlog images that have kind of helped to fuel the AI knowledge base, and so that's incredible. I think dark images, like you mentioned before, especially if it's accessible just through your base photography plan, you get your Photoshop installed. Maybe you're a newer photographer, like you mentioned, you have not a great lens or a great camera, but you love going shooting at night because that's what the folks do. And your night portraits are pretty grainy, and you can't always do an old film look on your images. So this is a really cool thing. I know that Photoshop introduced not too long ago also a feature where you can just like, and maybe this is what you meant, we're referring to with the hair selection, but like in the selection tool, it's almost like you draw a box around what you want selected, and then it'll take a few seconds, and then it'll do that. And I found that it's more like 25% of the time it's been really, really accurate. So if it's consistent then that's cool. If it isn't, then it's like, hey, let's try it first. It doesn't work, whatever, I got to do it like I would have had to do it anyways. If it does work, great. You cut down my editing time. Thank you, AI.
Yeah, it probably works about as well as like other things in Photoshop that are kind of getting there, kind of work sometimes, kind of not. Not always amazing. Yeah, and like same thing with other Adobe products, like with Premiere, right, where you'll like use the same warp stabilizer on one bit of footage and on another, and you'll have like completely different results, and you're like, why? Yeah. Like why? Same thing with spot healer in Photoshop, right? There's like the spot healing tool. Sometimes it just nails it right away, and you're like, boom, I can move on with my life. And sometimes it's like so weird and bad, it just gave you like 6 eyes on your person, and you're like, nope.
Healing is so much better on Lightroom, at least from my perspective.
Oh, really? Okay. Maybe I'll have to switch up my workflow a little bit. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm pretty much agreeing with you here. And that's what the person who wrote the article here on Petapixel is kind of saying the same thing. That like really this is only really going to help photographers. Also saying that like this stuff is happening already when it comes, like I mentioned, the cell phone thing. Like people have little filters on their apps where they're able to age up, and tons of things going on with like your photos being like processed by your phone and like artificially making them brighter or more crisp, like while you're taking the photo, artificially blurring out the background, like creating like a fake like bokeh kind of depth of fields effect, you know. Yeah, so I don't know. There's a lot of good things about it, and like I'm all for making it simple to edit. There are some things that we definitely need to be worried about here, though. One thing that definitely came to mind is like a lot of people who kind of get into photography, I think that like their entry level is like photographer's assistant, or maybe just like photo editing and stuff like that. And when they start doing that, you know, maybe there's like a photographer, like mentor of theirs or friend of theirs that like, okay, wants to throw them an olive branch and says like, hey, can you edit some photos for me or whatever? And then that's how they like first get into photography and how they like develop a love for it. And maybe like that starts to go away. And I think you kind of, you know, when you're getting rid of like the work of editing and things like that, like, yeah, people are definitely going to lose jobs. Like that's just true. Whether that's like a bad thing, I don't know. That some of that is just like the progression of technology, right? Like cab drivers lost jobs because of Ubers, but you know, whatever, horse buggy drivers lost jobs because of cars, you know. It's just like some things are just technology. But yeah, I do worry about people losing that like entry level thing, and you're kind of getting to this point where there's just like one, you know, there's like elite group of photographers at the top that can afford expensive cameras, can get the best software, and basically have a computer edit their stuff, and then kind of everybody else is screwed. Probably not really what's going to end up happening, but definitely a concern. And then the other thing that I was worried about is like where Adobe is sourcing this information from, and like how fair it is. Because what the potential is that like they're gathering all of this data from users, right? The potential is that every time that Michael Costa throws a photo into Lightroom and edits it, that Adobe is taking his process and incorporating that into what they're doing, and then you're basically paying for the privilege of helping them develop their AI. That's something that I thought about as well. Very interesting, right?
Yeah, no, that is interesting. Yeah, it's probably has something to do with their cloud-based platform, and so if you have that turned on, like you said, you're probably contributing to some sort of tech improvements, whether that's now or down the line, or software improvements. I think the other thing as well is that just the skill of editing, right? Like in episode 1, I mean, we talked extensively about how when we got started we turned into really good photo editors very quickly because we needed to learn how to fix the thing. Now, what happens if you underexpose that, you underexpose that image, and you look at the AI mosaicing?
Sure. Yeah.
You all of a sudden I
don't know, computer words, computer stuff, man.
I don't know. They can call them what they want, but it's just, you can rely on some sort of button. You click on a button and all of a sudden your problems are fixed. So I think, those things are cool. I think for me, in my position now. Like, I'm glad I've had the experience. I feel very comfortable in my I guess my knowledge of the platforms, and so just to have the extra help, I guess, is really cool. But yeah, I think, you know, we're kind of, I guess, in a way, crippling the future of editors, because they're not going to learn how to do a lot of these things just by hand, in a way.
Yeah, it's like I can't really say that it's like better or worse. It's definitely different. It's definitely different, right? Yeah.
Two sides. Yeah.
Two sides. It does remind me as well of like those. Have you ever seen like the robot photographers at Disney World?
So we got monkeys and we got robots. Man.
Yeah, man. At Disney World, that's what I'll throw up some pictures. If
you start telling me, yeah, please show me some photos so I know who to go after. But I'm just saying. If we start seeing gazelles with GoPros attached to their horns, I'm a flip, man. Do gazelles have horns or like the antlers or whatever?
I don't know, dude. You dug this hole.
I dig it, and I'm gonna bury myself in it, and I'm gonna end it here. Yeah. But yeah, I think I agree with you. It's like very. It's teeter-tottering. Fifth grade English as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's a bright and a dark side to it, and you know, you brought up a very good point with the job.
Yeah, so it's all interesting. I think like it's all the more reason really to just like stay on the edge, like keep your skills, and yeah, I mean if there are new applications coming out and new features, like keep trying to learn them and stay on top of them. If they can help you edit your videos faster, edit your photos faster, like that's just going to give you an edge ultimately. I don't know why you'd like kind of shy away from that type of thing, but yeah, that's the scary future that we're looking at here. Yeah, and that's that news story. So yeah, be afraid.
All right, but thank you so much for tuning in, Jared. Thank you for joining me on an incredible conversation. I love the conversation we had today.
Thank you, man. This was fun.
Yeah. So everyone go check us out. Our socials will be linked in the description down below, along with the links from everything we talked about today. So go check that stuff out, but also leave a comment down below. Jared, what's the question of the day?
The question of the day is, do you think that AI will be good for photography?
Beautiful. Just as we rehearsed, right?
Just
Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Don't forget to comment with, answering Jared's question. Don't forget to hit that like button. Share it if you think that your photographer friends will enjoy the topics. I don't see why they wouldn't. Just share it. But until next time, this has been the Photography Bros, and it's been great to have you with us.